I am Amit Jain from Roadz, the marketplace platform which powers the protective insurance marketplace. Over the next 30 minutes, you will learn how best-in-class fleets are dealing with the issue of driver distraction, especially as it pertains to the mobile phone usage. Most companies have mobile phone use policies, but those policies have mainly been enforced through an honor system. There are technologies which provide post-event insight into the mobile phone use, and then the companies either use a carrot approach by rewarding good behavior or reprimand the bad behavior. Today, you will hear from Ted Chen from Lifesaver on how blocking the onboard phone usage proactively can curb the bad behavior. We will end this session by viewing the Lifesaver solution card on the Protective Insurance Marketplace. Also, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and we will address those questions towards the end of the session. So without further ado, Ted.
Thank you, Amit. Hope everyone can hear me okay. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today for briefly about our solution and what we're doing in the fleet safety world and how we are available through the protective marketplace. So thanks very much. And what you see here on your screen is a screenshot of that marketplace, but I'm going to go to the slides and we can get started. So as Amit said, we're talking today about the topic of cell phone policy honor system and whether or not we can move beyond the carrot versus the stick approach. Let's talk a little bit about fleet safety and a little bit of background around what's going on in the marketplace. I think as agencies and insureds, which I understand most of you are, you probably appreciate the dynamics of what's happening in the marketplace today. But let's cover that in just a few slides here to make sure everyone's on the same page. So why do fleet operators care about distracted driving and speeding as two of the primary risk factors for what's causing pain in the fleet world today? And that's because phone distraction is one of the leading causes of collision frequency. Statistics are, short of the minimum bottom line is about 25%. If you talk to a lot of carriers, they think it's more like 50% of the cause of the frequency. And then speeding, of course, can really impact the severity of each claim as well. So there's both are good reasons for why people care so much about these two factors. When it comes to the phone distraction piece, really the idea is that companies should be strengthening their cell phone policies if they have one. If they don't have one, obviously they need to get one. And there's lots of literature out there. We certainly can provide some of that best practices as well around what a strong cell phone policy should look like. And you see some of those components there on the infographic on the slide. And then secondly, of course, a policy in and of itself is just the start to it, right? If you don't have a way to enforce the policy, your employees, your drivers will quickly know that and start to fall off the program. If there's no one to hold them accountable, the policy itself is somewhat toothless. So that's why you need to enforce the policy with technology. And there, obviously some technologies out there today that do that, including our own. So we'll talk about how that works in just a few moments. What's really driving all of this, the market dynamics around this pain, is the fact that unfortunately, when there's an event, an incident, especially when it involves a third party, then personal injury lawyers get involved, and they look at the fleet operators as a target, honestly, for a settlement or a verdict. You can see the increase in the average verdict size over the last few years has gone quite grown quite precipitously, and it's unfortunate, but the word nuclear verdict is kind of a catchphrase in our fleet ecosystem these days. Needless to say, one of the first things that these the folks that represent the plaintiff side will do is subpoena those records, and that's the phone records. So people are looking for evidence that fleet operators are doing at least the bare minimum to help alleviate and mitigate this risk. As I said earlier, the risk is one of the leading causes of collision frequency today. As you can see here, a lot of insurance folks have started to say that over and over again. And this is just one example with Progressive doing a study that basically said, hey, there's a direct correlation between phone distraction and loss. And that's not a surprise. It's kind of very intuitive. But at the end of the day, they put some numbers behind this as well. So it is something that pretty much every carrier, every insurance company out there really cares about, because it's one of the biggest drivers of loss. So what can we do about it other than, obviously putting in a policy? There's a lot of choices for fleet safety tech out there. These are some of the familiar segments of fleet safety technologies. Most people would be familiar with the cameras and the telematics. Even the online training and MVR monitoring has been around for a while. Cell phone blocking, it's interesting, it's become a critical piece to the whole portfolio approach on how fleet operators and insurance companies are thinking about fleet safety today. So much so that a lot of these other segments are starting to kind of partner with cell phone blocking technologies to make sure that that everyone can kind of get their portfolio of technologies from one place. And what we've seen just from the market that's coming to us is that cell phone blocking becomes a critical piece of the story to improving your fleet safety metrics, because of what we said earlier around the percentage of collisions that are being caused by this problem. And the phone is, let's not kid ourselves, the phone is a unique distraction. It's really much harder to prevent than some of the other stuff. Some of the other distractions, we know that distracted driving captures more than just phone. It captures, whether you're trying to eat behind the wheel, or do something else that's distracting behind the wheel. But the phone is a primary sort of the piece that's hard to control, and you can have all the artificial intelligence to identify it, and many of the camera solutions out there do that. But the problem is they don't force the user to stop using the phone. So you can warn as much as you want, but alert fatigue is a real issue. We know that. You can say over and over again, put the phone down, but at the end of the day, it's much better to prevent, not just detect the event itself. So that's kind of why our approach is very complementary to the camera solutions out there, in that camera solutions are going to identify the problem and how frequent it is, but they may not get the problem resolved because the user is just so willing to take that risk because it's such a unique and attractive nuisance. The other point to know about just fleet safety tech and what's out there is a lot of fleets are not good fits to use camera solutions. And part of the challenge with cameras, of course, is privacy, Big Brother. There might be union or government restrictions around it. Even obviously budgets, right? Because cameras are very expensive for the most part. And then finally, just the ability to review that video capture and be able to coach the drivers can be quite burdensome as well. So a lot of the fleets can't use cameras because of these reasons, which should obviously not just put it aside and say, okay, I'm not going to do anything. There are other ways to tackle the problem, and we think cell blocking is one of them. So this is where we come in. we feel like we have some unique differentiators to our solution. It is a platform. It's all software. It's basically an app deployed to every driver's smartphone or tablet. It's obviously very easy to deploy over the air. There's no hardware to install in the vehicle. Like we like to say, the phone is the hardware. And so very easy to get up and running. The next point is that the next differentiator is the proactiveness of it, right? So when you think about safety solutions out there, the more that it's proactive and it gets in front of the problem before it becomes a challenge, rather than collecting the event and then relying on the insured to coach up their drivers afterwards, then the better shape the overall policyholder is in. And that's what we do, right? We're very proactive. We're changing that behavior on the fly in the cab, right when that bad behavior is trying to happen. And that takes away a lot of the coaching burden that obviously most fleet operators don't want to have to deal with. And then the final differentiator is that we're tackling the two leading causes of crashes. I said that up front, but phone distraction and speeding are the primary causes of frequency and severity. Oops, sorry for that. So yeah, we'd like to talk about the proactiveness and how that really is a collaborative approach to both the driver and the manager kind of collaborating to tackle this problem together. So in this platform, our platform solution really encourages that, right? We like that phrase, 3 bites at the apple, because first off, we're giving the driver a couple opportunities to self-correct, even before the manager gets involved. Number one, during the drive, if the driver tries to unlock the screen, we're blocking that screen. Number two, if they're crossing a speed threshold that you've set in the portal, then we're going to let them know audibly as soon as that threshold is crossed, and then give that opportunity for that driver to slow down. If they don't slow down, then we'll record a violation. We'll tell them about that as well audibly. So we're not increasing the distraction. We're just trying to remove it as much as possible and fix the problem as quickly as possible. So that's the first chance at self-correction. The second one is that every driver, if you turn this feature on, can get a daily digest, which comes either by email or by text. And basically, it would indicate in the previous day how you did, right? So it's kind of a report card for the previous day, a lifesaver report card, if you will. And that's a second opportunity to self-correct, which is great because then they are reminded and reconfirm to them what they did in the previous day if they don't remember. And then finally, of course, the manager can get involved, and they obviously get an exception report as well. They get a daily or a weekly or both. And not that they would do this every day, but maybe they'll wait and see if the problem goes away because the driver self-corrects. And if it doesn't go away and they land on the exception report every day, then the manager can get involved and coach up the driver. And this is all the data for any particular driver is available in the portal, as I was describing to you earlier. So we call this the 3 bites at the apple. So just a little bit about a case study that we've done recently with a company called Royal Cup Coffee. They're one of the largest suppliers of coffee, tea, and beverage equipment to many of the hotel brands that you've probably stayed at, including all the Hilton chains, and a lot of restaurants as well. And so they came to us a couple of years ago. They have a mixture of all the classes, class 8, class 7, class 6, but they have all different types of vehicles and drivers. And so they wanted to make sure that they increased their fleet safety profile. And so they looked at the various solutions and decided on ours. They've been running it for a couple of years, and some of the reasons they chose us was because, number one, they didn't want to be big brotherish. So they thought that being less invasive was the right way to go, especially for their drivers. So obviously every fleet operator is going to be different on that profile of what they feel comfortable doing with their drivers and their relationship with their drivers. Second was they were really looking to tackle phone distraction as the number one thing, and then speeding as the number two thing. So this was a perfect fit from that perspective. Number three was the balance between safety and productivity, right? So as we all know, the two forces kind of contend with each other, and you kind of move up the scale of one and then move down the scale of the other. So the trick is to really thread the needle and have a nice balance between the two. Our product off the shelf really is a nice balance because we're with the settings that we give you in the portal, and again, everything's configurable in the portal. You can, off the shelf, it's basically conforms to sort of a hands-free policy that most of the 50 states have adopted as their cell phone policy today, cell phone driving law today. And that's what they do, right? Because they have a lot of long haul class 8s that are going across the country in between hub to hub. And so they want to make sure that those guys are staying safe, but also staying productive as well. They definitely felt like configurability was an important feature for them. And so they like the fact that we're doing that, we allow them to do that in the portal. They also like the fact that we're adapting, continually adapting. So we are working with them to launch a new sort of way of managing the Lifesaver solution on a driver level basis, so that if a driver logs in to their workday through an app that's already, that they're already doing today, because that's how they operate, then we will be able to take that signal and turn on our restriction. And then when they log out, then we remove the restriction. So it's really kind of individual driver based, and they love the fact that we're kind of always improving our solution to make it easier for them to manage their solution across many drivers. And then finally, they looked at the numbers across the last couple of years and seen a measurable and lasting improvement in their in their driver safety metrics, their fleet safety metrics. One example of that is so in our system we have a monthly driver score for every driver in your fleet, and they started so in the 80s, and then they went up to, I think their average score nowadays is in the mid 90s. So they've really done well in terms of just trying to adapt to a program that's enforcing their policies, and just going back to the whole, if you have a policy, you need to enforce it. We're a great way to do that. Oops. So the last thing I'll say here is that, as I said earlier, in the world of fleet safety tech, there's a lot of different solutions. Many of them have been around for a while. What's really becoming more apparent these days is that cell phone blocking seems to be in the mix as one of the most important tools from a fleet safety perspective. If you're doing one thing, you're not doing enough, but if you do a combination of things, usually cell phone blocking is one of those critical pieces to the strategy. And we're finding that true across, small and large enterprise fleets. And many of the insurance companies that we partner with believe the same thing. So they're really trying to take sort of the best of breed in each category of solutions, and really letting their insureds know as much as possible. This is just a kind of a brief snapshot as to some of the organic media coverage that we've received over the years, including just recently as last month, with that headline, "Will technology save fleets from distracted driving?" So that's really a very high level description of what we do. As Amit said, we are available today in the protective marketplace. Love for folks to be able to check that out. If you have any questions, please go there. And I'll just end with this slide where you can obviously reach out to us directly as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Amit.
Thank you, Ted. Appreciate it. Thank you for providing that overview. So folks, I just want to very quickly take you through the protective marketplace and show you how to get to the Lifesaver solution card. And then we'll open up for Q&A. I already saw there's a few questions coming in. So as some of you may have already navigated to the marketplace, this is where you come. I put the URL in the chat box so you can copy and paste it from there. But once you get to the Protective Marketplace homepage, you'll see that there's a range of different solution categories on the left side and the solution cards on the right side. You can either navigate to the solution cards by just clicking on the one that you're looking for, or if you're not certain and you want to browse around different categories of solutions, you can get to it by going to that solution category as well. But let's say you, since the Lifesaver card is right here, once you click on the card, it opens up, basically gives you a brief description about the solution, a longer description. There are some YouTube videos which are embedded here that give you more insight into how the solution works. You can look at that. And then there's a section of downloadable resources where there is some marketing collateral and product spec sheets and such, which can also download to further understand how the solution works. There is, once you are satisfied and would like to go ahead and either try or buy the Lifesaver solution, you'll see these buttons on the top. So if you want to apply for a free trial, this button is activated for you. Just click on it and you'll answer a few questions, hit send, and then somebody from Lifesaver will get in touch with you. If you're already convinced you want to buy this online, we have a buy button or a buy option, which is similar to an e-commerce option. You simply click on it, and within 3 screens, you can purchase the quantity of solutions, which is based on the discounted price that is listed on the solution card here. But if you do want a little bit more information about the solution, you can click on the request info option. You fill out again 5-6 questions and hit send. Again, in this case, somebody from Lifesaver will contact you and give you a deeper dive into the solution. So that's how you can come browse and buy these solutions off of the marketplace. At this point, we will go to the Q&A, and we have a few questions. Before we get to that, actually, I did want to make one point. The Progressive Insurance Company recently purchased or acquired Protective Insurance Company. So now Protective Insurance is part of the Progressive Group. So the question we have is, how does the onboarding process look like? Is there minimal downtime for the fleets? How long does it take on average for the fleets to deploy your solution? Ted?
Yeah, thanks, Amit. Yeah, this is one of the kind of differentiators that we were talking about earlier. So because we are a software-only solution, there's nothing to install in the vehicle, which means there really is no downtime for the fleet, right? Because we don't have the dynamic of having to pull the vehicle back into, to the facility to install a dongle or some sort of beacon or anything like that. That just doesn't apply to us at all. The onboarding process typically takes under 2 weeks, sometimes even faster. The most, I guess the longest parts of that process are the insured would give us a list of drivers' names and devices, phone numbers, of course, and then we upload that into your Lifesaver account within 1 business day. And then the other piece that takes a little bit of time is just educating your employees around how this program works, which of course we provide materials on how to communicate the program to your employees. And so you do that the insured would do that on their own schedule. It could take up to 2 weeks usually. It takes less than that, but once that's done, you go back in the portal, you click a few buttons, and deployment is actually underway. All it takes is that once you click those buttons in the portal, it triggers a text message notification to each device that's listed in your account in your Lifesaver portal, and the driver would see that, on behalf of so and so company, please install the Lifesaver app. It has a link that takes you over to the respective app store, where you would just download the app, log in for the first time with your phone number, which obviously everyone should know their phone number. That matches up to the phone number listed in the portal, which was given to us when the list was provided. And that's it. The deployment is complete. There's no hardware to install in the vehicle. So I would say typically under 2 weeks for onboarding.
Thank you, Ted. One other quick question. Today, there's a huge trend of BYOD, bring your own devices, that's happening in the industry. Do you face that? Is that a challenge for you guys when you're working with fleet managers or fleet operator owners, if you will, to deploy this technology?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, we can't. There's no kind of denying that that's a challenge. Corporate devices are easy, but if it's BYOD, there's two ways that we have discovered to unlock or rebut the objection from the employee, and they work quite well. And the two ways are, number one, if it's a true BYOD program, the fleet operator in many cases is providing some sort of financial motivation to having that driver use that device for business purposes as well. And so if you're doing that reimbursement, then you can obviously make Lifesaver a condition for reimbursement. So that's number one. And then the second is kind of tracks back to what I was saying earlier about being able to sort of manage the restriction very elegantly on a driver level basis, right? So to the extent that you can do that, and we have different ways to do that, by the way, it's really hard for an employee to object if you're saying, hey, during the hours that you're behind the wheel of my vehicle, of my 60,000 pound vehicle, you're gonna need to be restricted and on that phone, because it's the only phone. I know that's the only phone. And so that seems to play quite well with if you can just tell them that the restriction is only during the work hours. So those are two ways to overcome that BYOD objection.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
One more question. Can a fleet manager or owner go see the historical information about their drivers in the system?
Yeah, absolutely. So the portal that we talked about at a very high level it's your management for everything. It's your admin for everything. So it's your deployment tool. It's your configuration tool to customize the policies and the restrictions and all that stuff. And finally, it's a reporting tool. So any manager who is designated to have access to the portal can log in. They can be assigned different access rights. And based on their access rights, they can see different levels of drivers and that type of thing. And the data is quite robust in terms of the events that we capture. I will say that there's at least 3 or 4 types of events that we capture, including phone usage, and meaning phone attempts, because they're being blocked. If they try to tamper with the app and it goes offline, that's another event that we capture. Phone calls we capture if that's something you want to do, and speeding we also capture. So those are 4 basic types of events that we capture in the portal.
Thank you, Ted. So that concludes our session. We will be following up with an email with a link to this webinar, as well as you can come back to the Protective Marketplace and not only view the webinar that we went through today, but there's some historical webinars also on other topics that are posted that you may be able to review. So thank you everybody for joining, and thank you, Ted, for sharing your information with us.
Thank you.
Have a good day.